Coming up on All About Android, it's just us, me, Flo, Ron. We discuss a wallpaper that actually boot loops your phone. That is not a feature. Don't do it. Also, Android Studio 4 is released. Razer Kishi, I happen to have it. We do a little hands-on first look treatment with this. Quibi gets Chromecast support finally. Brave browsers, iffy affiliate links, a ton of your emails, and a whole lot more next on All About Android. All About Android is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remote. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LastPass. Prepare for the unexpected in your business with LastPass. Trusted by over 17 million users and 61,000 businesses worldwide. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help you. And by ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN is an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites that you visit. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid. Oh, yeah. Welcome to All About Android. Are you pumped? Are you ready? It's episode 476, and we're recording on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Can you feel it? The Android energy is thick in this room. Oh, yeah. We've got the latest news. We've got the latest hardware, and we've got the latest apps. I'm Jason Howell.
And I was not prepared for that sort of intro. I'm Ron Richards.
Yeah. Who are you?
Florence,
I feel like I was supposed to have read an email that I missed.
I just took off Jason's cues, put the lip gloss in my mouth. You know,
Flo did a yes and where I stopped the scene, and yeah. So this is why I don't do improv. Wow, Jason, that's great. I love the energy. Let's keep that energy up throughout the entire show if we can.
Certainly
entire time, Ron. I'm telling you, Android 11's going to be big. No, I can't do that the entire time.
That's going to hurt your voice. Yeah, that's
I was
rough.
about to say, you want to keep that throat intact.
Oh yeah.
It would be equally awkward if my internet does what it normally does and just starts stuttering and everything. Then you'd be really confused. So let's not go down that road. Let's just have a normal episode all about Android. Good to see you guys. We're gonna have a lot of fun today.
Jason.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Whoa!
That masked villain.
Pay no
studio.
attention to the man behind the curtain.
I believe that was the eye of Burke.
For the audio listeners, Burke just popped in. Burke's eyebrow popped in for a quick second via camera. Not sure where he is. We know what he's doing, but
he's got to get on the show somehow. His eyebrow, that's good enough. All right, well, what do you say we dive into this amazing news?
Yes.
Burke did it.
Wallpapers might break your phone. My boots definitely will.
Oh, that's true. Okay, a little Twit backstory here.
Oh,
Twit. Twit was it CES? I think it was CES years ago.
It was something in San Francisco.
Oh, was it in San Francisco? Okay, so maybe like Pepcom or something like that. And Burke was there with the Twit crew, and there was a phone. We probably told this story on the show before, but there was a phone that was like air quotes indestructible, and Burke wears some boots that apparently destroy indestructible things because he asked them if he could test that. Threw it on the ground and stomped on it, and for sure he broke the phone. So
that's how you do
fantastic.
it.
That's the power of Burke. The power of Burke compels
really into
you.
this Burke cam for what it's worth.
I know.
It's really disturbing. So for our audio listeners, Burke is rarely on camera. And in this particular case, as opposed to being on camera, he's chosen to just zero in on his eye, which is you kind of see into his soul. So I would encourage you to go to YouTube and search for All About Android episode 476, and you can see Burke's eye. So there
It's
you
kind
go.
of like we know
And
a little too much, you know.
Subscribe while you're there, please.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love it when you do that. All right, Flo, you got the top story. I don't know if it requires all of this energy that we've built up with, but nonetheless, go for it.
Well, hey, this is exciting if you're an Android developer. So we may have not had the Android 11 beta event last week, but we are still reaping the benefits from what would have been. So yesterday, Chet Hayes from Google posted on Medium that the new Android Studio 4.0 stable release was last week. Android developers can look forward to a bunch of new features, including a motion layout API for creating UI animations, which this is integrated now into the motion editor tool, which makes it easier than just adding XML files by hand. So think of it as a little more of a drag and drop approach versus maybe what you were doing before. Other features include a rewritten layouts inspector tool, also a build analyzer to increase the speed of build times by identifying bottlenecks in the build. So ultimately, this helps you and this helps those of us using Android in the end, right? Got to make things more efficient. Chet had also mentioned that there will be information soon on a rescheduled beta launch show. So keeping us on our toes, keeping us waiting for what's next. Until then, there's a couple of new Android developer videos that I saw were posted to the official YouTube account. They're also embedded on that Android developer's blog post. So you can go check those out if you're a developer, get excited for what's new, and just kind of like give yourself a little of excitement. Just watch something and just feel like, you know, yeah, this is what I love to do.
Things are normal. Everything's normal. This would all be Google I/O, but instead we're getting it in this Medium post.
Drips and drabs.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, at least there's no sunburn. There's no bugs. There's no grass. Anybody who's allergic to grass. There's no grass allergies involved. You know, it's...
Yeah. Although that would all be in the rearview mirror at this point, like a few weeks away. So that sunburn would have faded at this point. Speaking of Google I/O, yes, exactly. I did reach out to friend of the show, Mike Wolfson, who usually comes on around Google I/O. He was on a few weeks back because he is a developer and none of us are. And I was like, so Mike, like, what are a few of your favorite things here? And he got back to me right before showtime. Apparently, he's really big, like really down with the motion layout editor. He says the way the new motion layout works, you can tell Android a start and an end state for how you want your views to appear. And then Android will actually calculate how to transition between those two views and those two states. So you have this tool now that allows you to kind of scrub between those states for that. So seems to be positive on that. Also, the layout validation, he says, that's really cool. It's going to allow the developer to quickly switch between the various UI states right inside Android Studio. And then let's see here, Kotlin Live templates, which I don't think was in Chet's post there, which Mike says basically these are code completion tools and wizards that are built into Android Studio. They make creating boilerplate code easier. They included a bunch of new ones that are using Kotlin. This should make it easier for developers to create some of this simple, fresh Kotlin code. So
I saw some buzzing about that on Twitter with regards to Kotlin. Okay. You know, all good things in the end. I wish that whenever I look at the Android developers kind of rundown, whenever I look at any blog post, they make it look so easy, like it's something very approachable that you just go in and make your own app. And I want it to be that approachable, but it's not. I mean, for a first timer like myself, it's a little overwhelming.
You know what it reminded me of when I was looking at this blog post and it was showing the animation in the motion layout API. It's like, oh, that reminds me of way back in the day, talking early 2000s, late 1990s, when Macromedia Flash editor or whatever was a really big deal, you know, doing Flash animations and stuff. And I got a copy of it online and I was like, I'm going to become an animator with Flash. And it looked like it would be the easiest flipping thing in the world. And I just could not make anything of any use out of it. Looking at that tool kind of reminded me of that.
It's funny because that actually, like, I remember in the mid 90s, I taught myself HTML and JavaScript because that's all you could do. And then I remember the late 90s, like Dreamweaver and HomeSite and all these other like kind of front end things. And I was like, I'm like, you can't code WYSIWYG. You gotta write the code. You gotta know the tags. And I got kind of so superior of that. And it's so funny because that, I mean, ultimately bridging the gap between writing lines of code and using an editor, WYSIWYG editor, and like some sort of like logo-esque type visual programming. And there's a deep cut for those of you born in the 70s and 80s. But it's hard to make a visual editor to translate code, because in any particular case it's going to inject additional code. Like that was what we ran into with HTML and all that sort of stuff. And so if they can bridge the gap and make it a little easier to leverage libraries and leverage common code pieces and make it a little more visual, that's great. But to flow to your point, it's how often have we talked about I want to learn how to make an app, and there is still a huge gap between taking your first, online course of how to make an app and like being able to make Android Studio work for you in a way that's productive.
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, plus who has the time?
Who does have
the time to
Unless you're
develop
doing
apps?
it for, I have time. Listen, it already takes me hours out of my weeks learning how to set up a new CSS, style sheet of some sort. So.
Oh. That sounds
literally the one thing that drove me away from actual coding myself was CSS. I was just like, it drove me bananas. And so I was like, yeah, I can hire somebody to do this. So that's done. That's been my solution ever since. I know just enough to be dangerous. So.
Exactly. Oh man, I'm so in the same boat. Like, oh yeah, this makes a whole lot of sense. 20 minutes later, everything's broken and I can't even undo it. I don't even know how I got there. Yeah. Yep. Sounds familiar. Android 11, one feature that we are waiting for that is going to be a big deal in Android 11 is scoped storage. We've talked about it on the show before. It's essentially kind of creating sandboxes for data on the file system per app, so that not every app has access to all of the data and files of every other app. They're kind of tightening the reins as far as that's concerned. Well, it turns out that somebody discovered that this is going to actually interfere with at least one aspect of downloading and installing APKs online. APKs, of course, are the apps, the app files. And right now you could go to APK Mirror as just one example of a site that you could go to find Android APKs to install on your device. And it's really easy. You go there, you download, you install right from the browser. It kind of jumps you over. You kind of set the permission. You say, yes, give permission to this install. It happens. And then it takes you back to the page that you got the file from. And you just kind of continue on with your business. Well, now things are changing. And it may seem like a small change, but I think the reason the story is maybe a little bit bigger is because it harkens to bigger changes to come. Now, after you go out of that browser instance, for example, to install that app and you grant that setting, when you go back to return, it actually kicks you out to the home screen, which means it kills the process from what I understand, it kills the process of the browser. So then when you relaunch the browser, anything that was that you were in the middle of, if you had any, a form filled out or you had any sort of something in progress in that browser, it's kind of like it's reset the state of that browser and you have to start over again. So that might sound like a small thing, but I think what people are worried about is, okay, this is just one example potentially of Google saying of working in Google's favor to say, hey, the best place to get your apps is through the Play Store, because check out how inconvenient it is when you try to do otherwise. I don't know.
Interesting.
So that's what that's all about. I mean, as I noticed this story actually got a ton of action on Reddit. The Android Police article has, a lot of feedback. A few other publications picked it up and wrote about it. So it seems like the enthusiasts are really passionate about this because they would be the ones doing this. I think by and large, a lot of people just aren't. This isn't how they use their Android device, so it's not going to affect them necessarily directly. Yeah, but you have to wonder. I'm sure there will be other ways that scope storage does.
Yeah, you have to wonder how many average users even know what what side loading means, or where else to get apps. I mean, like, we've seen GetJar and Amazon and other kind of third-party app stores kind of emerge. And yes, the underground knows about them, and like the enthusiasts know about them, and we utilize them. But the millions of users have no idea, and it's only the Google Play Store. That said, I don't know, given the openness of Android, I don't know how great I feel about them making it a little harder to install apps that aren't from the Google Play Store. Like that veers a little too in the Apple range for me, personally. Like part of the fun is that you can do that on Android and that you're open to do it. So yeah, that's frustrating.
I don't know. I think, through what I was reading from like community feedback about this and everything, I think a lot of people are kind of landing where you're talking about, right? Like this is a continuation of this trend in Android to kind of maybe, go to the more lockdown approach, the more controlled approach, the iOSification of Android, which a lot of people, I'm reading more and more people kind of talk about this and be like, well, if Android is just going to continue becoming more like iOS, then I'm going to go to the real thing, which I think it's maybe an overcorrection, but, speaks to the frustration, I suppose, that some people have about moves like this. So,
I mean, it'll make it safer, right?
Well, that's Scope Storage should. I mean, that's kind of the idea behind it. I actually, I personally, I think I approve of the idea of Scope Storage. I'm just curious to see how it affects things. What the domino effect is, and this is just one component of that.
Yep, and Robot in the chat room says safer at what cost, which I think is a good question. It's a fair question to ask.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Slippery slope.
Totally.
Slippery slope. What's also a slippery slope is using wallpapers. This is a fun one, and this is a little on the edge of the weird ones. I don't know if you heard, but there was a wallpaper that crashes your phone, which is crazy. So Ice Universe tweeted out a picture that, when applied as a wallpaper on Samsung phones, causes the phone to crash. And then, of course, like everyone in the world who's smart went ahead and installed the wallpaper to see for themselves, and phones were caught in a never-ending boot loop that required a lot of work in order to undo it. So listen, if you have a Samsung phone, don't do this. Don't set it as your wallpaper. Trust us. Basically, the backstory on this is it's limited to Android 10 devices only, and it specifically has to do with the RGB color space, which is basically how the device handles colors. And this applies to your photos and things like that. If you go deep in the settings, you're able to change what the visual settings are, and you can change which RGB or which color space it's using. And that's where this bug kind of lies. Android 10 converts all images to sRGB. And there's a bug in the AOSP that allows for the luminance of each pixel to be calculated such that the number exceeds the limit of 255 after rounding up. And a single pixel in that image did just that, with a luminance of 257 after that equation. XDA points out that this is incredibly specific how this image results in that bug. Android 11's color space isn't converted to sRGB by default, so it doesn't happen there. And Google is actively investigating it. How whomever found this out and figured it out and did that is fascinating, and it's crazy. Yeah. And I think it's hysterical that people are just like, oh, let me see it happen, and there it did. And I also find it amazing that the whole world is basically built on magnitudes of 255 still to this day. Like, I just had flashbacks of my old, computer game hacking and ASCII hex code editing, and 255. The 255 character base was always your the area you worked in, and it's amazing to see that still applies. So
yep. Now,
crazy.
9 to 5 Google has an article on this. Who is it? Ben Schoen, friend of the show, Ben Schoen, tested this on his Pixel 2, and it did the same thing. So it's not just Samsung phones, realizing it works. It does this on other Android 10 devices. He did point out that it didn't cause any problems when it simply existed and was viewed in the Google Photos app. So there's something about applying it as the wallpaper that is the trigger here. But like you said, Ron, I love when the investigators get to work on something like this. Oh no, an image is applied as a wallpaper. We must figure out exactly why. And then they go so deep that I can't even comprehend how you figure that out. But of course,
the reverse engineering on this bug had to have been. It's like the kind of thing where you can look at it like, why is that happening? And you got to dig deep into the code to find that out. And that's I mean, kudos to whoever figured it out. And if Google is going to fix it and fix the bug, which I'm sure they will, but like fascinating. And this is the thing, like there's a lot of, I don't know if it's a human error, but there's a lot of little conversions and little adjustments and things like that your phone and these applications and the OS does on a microscopic level that you have no idea about, and it just takes 2 digits to crash everything, right? So it just shows how fragile everything actually really is, and this is such an edge case. You would never even, this wouldn't even come up in QA. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, right.
So,
right. How would you even plan for this? But actually, the people who create all this stuff, they're smart enough that maybe they do plan for this sort of thing, and they just miss this. I mean, they have a fix for this, or well, rather, Android 11 does things differently in a way that this doesn't happen. And I don't know if it was necessarily tied to solving this particular problem. It could be kind of part of another thing, another feature, but it is what it is. So let's take a break and thank the sponsor, and then we will get into some hardware and apps in the next block. And then after that, the sponsor afterwards, we have a whole bunch of emails. So we've got a bunch of your feedback that we've been collecting like collectors, and we'll read through some of those. This episode of All About Android is brought to you by LastPass. It is always important to have a plan for the unexpected. LastPass can be deployed quickly in the midst of any event, and that's to keep your business running smoothly and every employee login, making sure that all of those logins are secure. Single sign-on manages employee access in a centralized view, so IT actually always has insight into who has access to what, from where, all the important details. Enterprise password management ensures oversight of shadow IT and enforceable policies across all password-protected accounts. Multi-factor authentication, of course, requires additional factors to prove a user's identity, while the use of biometrics and contextual factors makes the process smooth for employees, makes it a little bit easier and approachable. Businesses should be thinking about additional layers of defense beyond the password, of course. LastPass does not send or store the master password. If LastPass can't access your data, in other words, hackers can't either. Encryption happens exclusively at the device level before it's ever synced to LastPass to keep the storage safe. So only users can decrypt their data. They use 256-bit AES encryption. That's the same encryption type utilized by banks and by the military. LastPass protects while providing a seamless workflow for your employees. So account access and passwords can all be shared securely between employees, whether they happen to be in the office or remote, as many people are right now. Employees will get secure access to their work applications with SSO and password management, and there's an offline mode for both password management and multi-factor authentication, so employees can always access what they need, whether they're online or offline. It enables that. Of course, we use LastPass at Twit. I use LastPass and have prior to LastPass coming out of the network as a personal user. And then I was delighted to have them on the network. It's such an easy product to talk about because I literally rely on this every single day. I use it. I love it. It's just so easy. You need to check it out yourself. LastPass can make remote work simple and secure. It can help you do that. Visit lastpass.com/twit to find out how they can help your business stay productive and secure no matter what. That's lastpass.com/twit. And we thank LastPass for their support of this show. All right. Got some interesting stuff to talk about. I'm going to show off something here in hardware. Let's jump to it.
All right, excited Jason. This is what I've been waiting for all night for. Excited Jason with a new camera shot.
Did it work? I had to do the flow method here of switching
I love that.
dynamically in Skype. So what you're looking at is the Razer Kishi. Now, maybe you remember months ago, Razer had an event and they were showing off a gamepad controller for Android. And this is it. You can see right off the top, it looks a lot like a Nintendo Switch. The layout, the controller layout is very similar. I have my Pixel 4 XL plugged in right now. And it's actually really cool how this works. I'm on Stadia right now. So this is one of the Tomb Raider games that I've been playing on Stadia using the Kishi. And it was literally the first time I ever did it. It was as simple as putting the phone in, launching the Stadia app, and going. I didn't have to route any buttons. I didn't have to do any of that weirdness. It just kind of worked. It's really cool how this operates, though. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it out. It's like a universal design. There we go. And it folds up into this. I'm trying to do this while my arms are extended out to the other side of the table here. It folds up into this little compact mode, right? It all snaps together. It's not like I can use this as a Bluetooth controller because after all, this is not run at all on Bluetooth. It's all done wired with the USB-C port that's in there. And the design is such that it fits a number of phones. Like there's no real length or height adjustment for the phones, but it does here. Let's see here. I have to release this, then it pops out. It does kind of have a little bit of give this way. So if your phone's really long, it can kind of snap into place. But I've tried all the phones that I have here at the house, of which I have far too many, and they all fit in here. So, you know, the OnePlus 8 Pro, OnePlus 7T, I've tried the Pixel 3a, I've tried the S20 Ultra. They all fit in here and easy as pie. You just plug it in and you go. So it's actually really cool. The fact that it's USB-C means that you don't get the latency that's introduced through Bluetooth streaming. And yeah, I'm really excited about this. It's actually a lot of fun. Like I got this a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes getting it to snap together like that is a little difficult. I got it a couple of weeks ago, and I've been using it a lot ever since. Like at night, I get the kids to bed, and then I go downstairs and I play games on it. Feel like a little kid again myself. The buttons feel really nice. Basically, I'm working on a full review for Hands on Tech. So that's going to hit the site, twit.tv/HOT on Monday. But I wanted to kind of show it off. Today was kind of like the release, the Hounds Day. It was the day where the embargo lifted and everything, and I could actually talk about it. Yeah, the buttons feel good to me. I'm not like a hardcore gamer, so I'm probably not the perfect person to be super critical of like, well, actually on the Xbox controller, this button feels like. I couldn't do a direct comparison between the two, but I will say like I think playing a console level game like Tomb Raider on Stadia with this, I haven't run into any issues where I'm like, damn, I wish this controller was better. Like it's really done a really great job so far.
I would be concerned about the opening and the closing and the snapping in, like the mechanical aspect of it over long-term use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can understand. I can understand that. In using it on a daily basis, I haven't felt like it doesn't feel cheap. It feels pretty substantial. But yeah, it's kind of got this like kind of floppiness to it on the back, and it's really only floppy until you actually plug in the phone. So if I go, sorry, and I'm trying to do this lopsided here. So I do like that, I go like that, and boom, it's in, and it's ready to go. Once you're here, it's pretty sturdy. I mean, I get a little bit of wobble here.
A little give. There's a little give.
A little bit of give, but it really, you don't notice, or I don't notice that while I'm playing. One thing that I will say is kind of like a criticism is when the phone is in there, the back of this is, well, it's just a little, it's almost unfinished. It almost feels like it's unfinished a little bit. So when you're playing for long periods of time and these hands are, resting behind there. Sorry, I bumped the camera. These fingers are resting behind there. It kind of gets a little uncomfortable at times over long periods of time. But I mean, you just adjust how you're holding it, and it's not the end of the world as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that is the Razer Kishi. It's $80. Is the cost. So maybe a little bit pricier than some of the gamepads that you'll find. But I mean, like I said, I haven't had to really map much of anything. Any Android games that are controller compatible here, and stay on the site because I'll do my switch over. Any of the Android games that are controller compatible seem to work like right out of the box, and so I don't know. That makes me happy and positive. And the app that I brought into the arena a couple of weeks ago, Citra, the Nintendo 3DS emulator, works amazing on this. It's actually
I was gonna ask if it has the same kind of feel as the Nintendo Switch, because as you were saying, after the kids go to bed and you go play video games, I mean, after Mona goes to bed, I sit with my Nintendo Switch Lite, and I want that same experience for the Android phone, and the phone is supposed to have all of these internals and all of these abilities that I never quite take advantage of because it's just not comfortable to do with the touchscreen mechanism. And that's just not how I'm used to playing games. I would much rather just have a controller. I know that's kind of maybe antiquated of me, but
no, I think it's totally valid.
There's something tactile. There's something tactile about it, and I'm with you, Flo. Is that like as we see these kind of like A-list games, Fortnite or whatever, come to phones, and I have a friend of mine who plays it all the time, and I'm just like, I don't want to use my phone screen for that. Like it's too, and this could be a generational thing, and I don't mean to show my age or anything like that, but it's too loose and it's too imprecise in my opinion, and my thumbs are big, and you want a joystick. Sometimes you just want a joystick and a button. You want a physical button to press.
I don't think that's antiquated at all. I think anyone who is a true gamer will, I would guess, insist on some sort of actual controller or a keyboard and mouse scheme.
That's a bold term. A true gamer.
Well, no. How do you define? How do I define true gamer? I guess what I'm thinking is like someone who like lives and breathes gaming all the time. Like, yes, you can do the tap on the screen thing, and that's going to work for certain games. But if you're playing a game that requires like, there's a game, I did not bring it into the arena. Man, what is it called? A game that just released last week, and it's actually a port. I'm trying to get my phone to react to me here so that I have something to even point to. What is it called? It is called, hold on, Dead Cells. Dead Cells is a game, it's a console game that just released on Android. And I saw tons of comments of people about this saying, like, how the heck could you even play this game with touchscreen buttons? Like, it's impossible. It's impossible with a hardware controller, let alone touchscreen buttons. So I guess all I'm saying is someone who's really sophisticated in their gaming would, I imagine, feel like a touchscreen button versus a hardware controller is a hindrance on touchscreen, comparatively speaking. That's all I mean. So, I don't want to make some sweeping, bold statement. There's always someone who will say, hey, not me. But someone who plays esports, they're probably not going to opt for the touchscreen versus a hardware controller. So, anyways, I think it's a really great controller. I'm looking forward to spending a little bit more time with it. And then give a full review, Hands on Tech, twit.tv/HOT this upcoming Monday. So next Monday, that should post in the morning. And you can find out more of what I think then.
And it's Razer. Yeah. So it's gaming quality. It's not, off the back of an accessories truck.
I will say that it is lacking some dramatic lighting.
Yeah, there is no Razer LED.
Yeah, there's no like underlit buttons and or any sort of water cooling element or anything like that to it. I mean,
the only
honestly,
thing you get,
for a Razer product, it's a little subdued.
Yeah, I'll see if I can hold it up if you can even see it. But it has this pass-through USB-C port, right? And so the only LED you get is this little. I'm doing this backwards. This little blue LED right there. So comparatively speaking,
it's charging.
Yeah, it's a little LED, but
little LED.
Little LED.
I'm just saying they could have made that look a little more gamer.
Yeah,
or at least have a version of it that was like the extreme version, with no.
Well, I could argue they should have made a pink one. Because Razer makes pink gaming peripherals, and where is my pink one?
Someone's going to come out with skins for this thing, right? Someone's got to do it.
I don't want a skin. I want the real
I agree.
deal. I don't want a skin. It makes me an afterthought.
Totally. No, you're absolutely right. I completely agree. So, all right, Flo, you got the next one.
Yeah, well, we've got other exciting hardware news, and this is exciting if you're looking for a budget device that kind of fits in with the current crop of phones that are out right now. Motorola actually has a few new budget phones. So we've got the Moto G Fast, cool, and the Moto E. They're both under $200. The Moto G Fast is $200. It's got a 6.4-inch 720p display, a Snapdragon 665, 3 gigs of RAM, 4,000 milliamp battery, so pretty good battery life for those particular specs. 32 gigs of storage and a triple rear camera. And actually, the audio listeners won't be able to see this, but the rear of that Moto G Fast, the cameras actually look pretty cool. They're stacked on top of each other in kind of this like stoplight fashion, and they're off to the side. So it's got a nice little like design flair on the back with the cameras there. It's just, that's nice. It's nice. It's nice.
I will say that this coming off of the last time we talked about Motorola was their re-entry into the flagship market, and there was a lot of consternation and concern over, oh no, Motorola, don't give up on affordable phones and all this stuff. So it's nice to see that they've got some sub $200 phones, on the shelf along with the $1,000 phone. Like Motorola, well-balanced product offering. I think they're doing it right.
Well, Ron, it goes even lower than $200 because the Moto E is $150 for a 6.2-inch 720p display with a Snapdragon 632 processor, 2 gigs of RAM, which honestly, for as affordable as this is, I don't like to use the word cheap so much. So as affordable as this is, 2 gigs of RAM just seems extremely paltry in this day and age. 3,550 milliamp battery, 32 gigs of onboard storage, and dual rear cameras instead of triple ones. Motorola also announced the One Fusion Plus, not One Plus Fusion. See that if those words are turned around, it sounds different. No, this is the One Fusion Plus, which is coming to Europe this month, the month of June, as well as an updated Moto One Hyper. These are some very interesting model names. These two are going to be around 299 euros, 6.5-inch 1080p display, quad camera array on the back. So 64 megapixel main, 8 megapixel wide, 5 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel depth, not death. Snapdragon 730. So slightly upper range processor there. 5,000 milliamp battery, 6 gigs of RAM. That's more like it. FM radio receiver, which, yes, people still listen to the radio in this world, as well as a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack and a pop-up 16 megapixel front camera. So those are a little more exciting. Coming to the European market later this month. And then here in the US, we have the Moto G Fast and the Moto E, both which are under $200. So lots of affordable options there from Motorola. Motorola has not left us in the affordable game. And, I would love to get my hands on any of these and see what it's like to use a phone with 2 gigs of RAM in 2020.
Yeah. How does it stand up to Fortnite?
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to be
Fortnite,
saying that.
How does it stand to just Instagram alone? Like
just Chrome.
The Chrome exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Chrome will make it buckle. That's too bad. That's sad.
Chrome unfortunately makes everything buckle.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's sad.
Don't even get me started on my Pixelbook because it's starting to it's just been freezing nonstop. Chrome has. I've had to use other browsers. It's just, we'll talk about this someday.
Oh, that's no good.
A lot of time in quarantine means you spend a lot of time with your devices and you start to really
totally. It's almost like we're burning through their usable life. Like they had longer life at our other usage pattern, but now that we're just on them all the time, because my kids are using some of my laptops that I would normally use at work because they needed some for school. So it's like, oh, well, you can just use these, and they're starting to be weird. And I'm like, God, is it just because they're being used all the time? It must be.
Yeah,
I guess
that's what happens.
Yeah.
Some people, having a hard time being quarantined with their family. I'm having a hard time being quarantined with my tech family because all this gadgetry is starting to really just starting to
you've
see
named
the flaws.
them all, haven't you?
I need to do a little curation of who I'm going to keep in my life and who.
Oh no!
This is getting dark. Yikes,
Yeah.
You guys know I can turn anything into a soap opera. I'm going to turn all of this stuff into a soap opera because, again, I'm quarantined. So I need some entertainment.
You've got the time. You don't actually have the time. No one has the time. We like to pretend like we have the time in quarantine, but we don't actually have the time.
We don't have the time. I sure don't have the time.
Yeah, no one has the time to watch vertical video, as we're going to talk about right now in the apps section. Burke.
Oh man, there's some great punchlines in tech and in mobile technology, and one of my favorite go-to punchlines over the past couple months has been Quibi, the new streaming service that came from Jeffrey Katzenberg, right, and Meg Whitman, and designed to be mobilely optimized, and they've raised billions of dollars and thrown money at content at productions and to create their streaming service. And when the app finally launched, it was revolutionary because you could watch it on your phone vertically or rotate it, watch it horizontally. And each episode was only a few minutes. It's supposed to be quick bites, Quibi, quick bites. And it rolled out at a time when no one was commuting and no one was out with the idle time on their phone. And there's already rumors of layoffs, and there's already it's proving to be a big disaster. But from a technical standpoint and an Android standpoint, one of my biggest complaints, and we talked about it when it launched a few weeks ago, one of my biggest complaints about it was there was actually some content I wanted to see. There's a docuseries about pasta. They have new episodes of Reno 911, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, right? So, it missed all the nonsense, like whatever the Tegan, whatever that woman, the Chrissy show is, and other stupid nonsense for millennials. But there's actually looked like some promising, interesting stuff. But I'm not going to watch on my phone. So when the app came out, I emailed them and I was like, hey, why don't you support Chromecast? And they said, oh, we don't. We're mobilely optimized. I'm like, right. But with Chromecast, I could use my phone and watch it on TV, and it'll be great. And it's not even like they get this whole rap for being mobilely optimized video, but you don't even have to watch it vertically. Like, they actually did some really interesting, clever technology in that the same video you watch, if you go vertically or rotate to horizontally, the shot widens for horizontally or gets tighter for vertically. It's actually something that no one has done, and is actually a really compelling way to handle video on phones. But they do have a widescreen version of everything in their service, so it's not like you couldn't Chromecast it to the TV or something like that. So I basically asked them the question. I said, "Why are you keeping me from watching your content? Isn't that the point, right? Isn't the point to get us to watch it? Who cares how we watch it?" But they dug in their heels. They said that they would be mobile only, and that lasted about a week or two, and then their leadership came out in a couple of interviews saying, we miscalculated some things. We're going to be rolling out some new features. And sure enough, last month they added AirPlay support for iOS users, and then today they've announced Chromecast support for Android. Finally, a month and a half since they've launched. I've checked in the Google Play Store. I have not gotten their app update, so I don't have it yet. So I'm unable to use it for Chromecast. But when it does, I will gladly try it. I will sample their content as I promised them I would. So they finally rolled out Chromecast. Still no dedicated apps for the Amazon Fire or Roku or Android TV or any of the other set-top boxes or anything like that are not mobile devices. But yeah, it's just a parade of bad decisions. It's like OnePlus in the early days. So Quibi, very funny. Chromecast, there you go.
You're gonna watch that pasta show, aren't you?
Oh sure, heck yeah, why not? They also noticed. What's so funny is that they also did. I'm sorry, they also didn't have dedicated web pages outside the firewall for their shows. So if I was watching a show on the phone and wanted to share it and post to social and drive awareness and post a link to it, couldn't even do that. Like it seems like rookie mistake. Like when you raise over $1 billion in funding, you don't make a mistake like that. Like that's just man.
It doesn't work in this day and age either. Like it only works for Apple, as we've seen. Only Apple can get away with that. Nobody else can. Just stop trying to. Yeah. I was going to ask you, Ron, find out if they cast the videos in portrait or landscape mode.
Oh, if it comes up in portrait or it comes up in portrait, I will throw the phone out the window.
That would be hilarious. Yeah. Well, we still feel strongly about our portrait video, so you can have it on Chromecast, but you're not going to watch it landscape. Oh no, no, they can't do that, right? Like they do that, they're like they wouldn't do that, right? I don't think they would do that. I guess we'll.
How long have you been doing this job? How long have you been covering Silicon Valley, Jason?
I know.
That's a good point. It's a good point.
You know what? I keep giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, I suppose.
Because you're a good person.
We'll see what they end up doing. Speaking of giving the benefit of the doubt, Brave Browser was discovered by a user to be inserting affiliate referral codes into the ends of web addresses when a user goes to use the Brave browser. When they wanted to go to a crypto site, they type in the URL, and the Brave would enter in a referral code, an affiliate referral code at the end of that URL when it detected it. It was discovered initially when the user noticed an autofilled code at the end of Binance.us. And then kind of the awareness was raised, but it isn't just limited to Binance. It also was doing this with Coinbase, Ledger, and Trezor. That means ultimately, essentially, that Brave gets a little kickback on each of those links, those affiliate links. And when they put it on the URL, that tells these sites, these companies that Brave essentially passed this user onto them. Meanwhile, the user didn't necessarily get there through Brave. That user said, hey, I'm going to go to Coinbase, types in the URL through their own volition, and then Brave kind of piggybacks on that by putting the affiliate link at the end and then making a little money off of that transaction or that whatever you want to call that. CEO Brendan Eich did say on Twitter that he didn't feel like this was wrong. Eventually, I think he relented. Ultimately, Brave is disabling this as a default. So this is still a part of the browser. It's still a way that if you're a Brave user and you want Brave to make money off of your own browsing, because they are a company, they do have to pay the bills, right? They're not doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. That you can turn this on and that would pass this through. I guess, and so it can be opted into, in other words. I guess my question on this is, shouldn't they have done that initially? Or at least made some sort of awareness around this? Because being discovered after the fact to be doing this, I'm still kind of on the fence whether I think this was horribly wrong or not. Ultimately, it's not like the people were paying necessarily, although the sites that they're directing to, they might not be too happy about the fact that they now have to pay out for every single user that comes from the Brave browser typing the URL in there. But I just feel like if Google had done this with Chrome, Google would be like, there would be an avalanche of heat around this. What do you guys think?
It's a gray area, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think the thing about Brave is I started using it without realizing who the person was behind the Brave browser, the CEO, and he certainly does not have the best. He has a terrible track record. Yeah. And after kind of finding that out, I've been reassessing my relationship with the browser because I really liked the fact that it just automatically cut off everything and just made the browsing experience much easier. But at the same time, when I hear about these things, it raises a lot of red flags. And it's shady. It's just the word shady just kind of comes up on screen for me, and it makes you
don't want that. That doesn't make you feel good about something.
Exactly, totally. Ron. Yeah. Exactly. Just that word being associated with it just doesn't feel good. So I've been actively trying to figure out a new browser situation, which is why I brought DuckDuckGo last week, because I'm just. It just doesn't seem worth it to use anymore. And this is not the first time they've done this sort of faux pas. They've done this before. I think they were making money off of something else back in, a couple months ago or last year or something. So it's just, Too much tripping. And there's plenty of other browsers out there, folks.
Totally.
I mean, it's interesting because the parallel I'm trying to make to it is that, you know, like, because the thing is that we do talk about, and by the way, Flo, I completely agree with you, and I think that I won't use this for this reason, but I'm trying to play devil's advocate and think about it. We often talk about support your devs, and we talk about how hard it is in an environment and a micro economy within apps economy that devalues the products themselves. You know, like I do. We say support your devs all the time, but if I see an app that is like $3.49 is my limit, and like if I see something that's $7.99, that is a tough sell for me to buy that app. It's got to be something that I'm going to use a lot, and because we have rendered the value of these apps to be so negligible. Whereas the Quibi subscription is like, I think it's $7.99, or you know what I mean? Like, you know, the amount of $7 to $15 subscriptions to content and stuff like that we have out there, it really, like, we've thanks to Apple and the creation of the App Store, then Google with the Play Store, and the way it has been marketed and the way it has been priced, you know, we have devalued these periods. So it's very hard to start a company around something like this and actually monetize it, because people won't pay you for the app. So I understand the desire to come up with some sort of way to make money on the side through cryptocurrency. But to your point, it is shady. I think about stuff that I've done in my career, you know, like with iFanboy, with the podcast, you know, we set up Amazon affiliate links. And we have a link on the website on ifanboy.com to go to Amazon, and we pass our affiliate code so that we make a little bit off everything. Is that shady? You know, we're transparent about it. We advertise it. We tell people if you go to the site, if you go to click on the Amazon, that helps us. We get a couple of cents on the purchase. Like we're upfront about it. So like if Brave had done that in their onboarding experience, saying like, oh, by the way, every link helps Brave stay in business, and like that sort of thing, and then it motivates you to get behind the product you like and help it. But the idea of not hiding it, but not acknowledging it, or covering it up or whatever, makes it shady, and then therefore makes it more user hostile. So you know, it is a gray area and it's tough, but I think that this is a time where transparency and communication is key. And if you let people know all the ways you're making money and how they can help you, you then motivate them with a good product to help you make more money. So I don't know. That's my thought.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ron. That's a good point. And just don't be shady. There's no need to be shady anymore.
I mean, that's just good. That's just a good life lesson, period. You know, like don't be shady. Treat people how you want to be treated, and then have a good day.
Well, apparently that people are still learning that in 2020 as the world has shown.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
That was a good summation. Excellent discussion there, and I think it's worth emphasizing. Affiliate links in and of themselves, that's not the shady part. Like that's how a lot of people make money online. As long as I was just gonna say, welcome to online media.
Yeah,
exactly. That's just kind of how it works, and I think a lot of people understand that it is the inserting of this kind of indirectly. And, you know, when that gets discovered, then it's a bad story all around, especially for a browser that touts itself to be pro-user, privacy focused. Yeah. You know, it's kind of a browser that has built its name around having a lot of cachet in kind of protecting your data and everything. So it feels like it goes counter to that when you're kind of secretly doing something like this or trying to hope that no one discovers it.
100%.
All right, Ron, you got the next ad.
I do have the next ad, and speaking of privacy and all things like that, this episode of All About Android is brought to you by ExpressVPN. And listen, those of us who know how the internet works and know, you know, especially if you're using Chrome as your main desktop browser or Firefox or anything like that, know that a lot of the things you search for go into the cloud at Google and your larger, you know, kind of search history. And so you think, you know, sometimes I'm going to search for things that I don't want people to know that I'm searching for. We've all done it. It's okay. No shame. I know specifically I have 2 children. I often search for things relating to their health and wellness that I don't necessarily want to affect my search results in my personal account. So I'll open up an incognito window and I'll search, you know, like
how to help a gassy baby.
Exactly. How much food should a 16-month-old eat, or like that sort of thing. And I'll pop over an incognito.
You don't know, Ron?
I know.
You don't already know that? Oh, what a horrible parent. I'm just kidding.
But so I'll pop over to incognito mode and I will search for it there so it doesn't affect my search results and that sort of thing. But here's the thing. Incognito mode doesn't hide your activity. All right. So if I was searching for something a lot more sensitive or intimate, it doesn't matter what mode you use in your browser or how many times you clear your browsing history. Your internet service provider can still see every single website you've ever visited. And that's why even when I'm home, I never go online without using ExpressVPN. It doesn't matter if you get your internet from Verizon or Comcast or any other local ISP. ISPs in the US can legally sell your information to ad companies. So every search you're doing, whether it's in a regular browser or in an incognito mode or any sort of thing, the ISPs are still filtering it. They see those packets come through, and you really want to protect yourself. ExpressVPN is an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so that your ISP can't see the sites you visit. ExpressVPN also keeps all your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data with the most powerful encryption available. Most of the time, I don't even realize I have ExpressVPN on. That's how fast it is. It runs seamlessly in the background, and it's so easy to use. All you have to do is tap one button, and you're protected. Boom, it's that easy. And ExpressVPN is available on all your devices, phones, computers, even your smart TV. So there's no excuse for you not to be using it. So listen, you want to protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by CNET and Wired. So you want to visit expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid, expressvpn.com/allaboutandroid to learn more and protect yourself when you're online. Come on, it's 2020. We should know these things. Use a VPN, use ExpressVPN. And thank you for sponsoring this episode of All About Android, ExpressVPN. We love you.
Thank you, ExpressVPN. All right, we got a whole stream of emails, and I just a stream. Yes. So why don't we start at the top? Huh?
I love this first one. So Jeff writes in and says, "Fellow Met fan here. Hello, Jeff. Let's go Mets someday. If we ever have baseball ever again." I do got to say, I am enjoying being a baseball fan. The fact that the MLB Network and SNY here in New York are just constantly playing old games. But I never thought I'd say the words that I'm getting tired of watching Game 6 from 1986. I think I've watched it like 8 or 9 times since April. And so yeah. Anyway, I want baseball to come back, please, any day now. Anyway, so Jeff says, I too love my Shield TV and hate the Netflix button on the remote. You don't need to be a 3-year-old to accidentally hit the Netflix button on the Shield TV remote. I do it all the time. And as those of you who listen to the show heard me complain about the fact that my children get a hold of the remote and hit the Netflix button, and we would go, Netflix. So Jeff recommends an app called Button Remapper. It can be installed on your Shield TV and used to disable or remap the button. It's a free app with a $2.99 in-app purchase upgrade to Pro. Support your devs. Way to go, Jeff. It adds a few features that I do not use. I simply use it to disable the Netflix button. And so listen, Jeff, thank you for this. Thank you to everyone else on Twitter who pointed this out to me. Since we last talked about this topic, I have not only installed Button Remapper on my Shield TV, I've also remapped and disabled the Netflix button. There was a moment of like, ooh, I could just make it do something else. I could make it open Disney Plus, or I can make it. And then I realized we would just have the same problem. So I just remapped it to do nothing. And now my Shield TV remote has been neutered of Netflix, and it just is the key core functions that we need. And now the latest problem is Luna takes the remote and she presses every other button, because not only has she figured out that it's the remote that makes things happen, because I tried to give her the DVD player remote as like a switcheroo, but she knows that doesn't do anything. Now she sits there and she holds the volume button and watches it get louder, or presses play and pause and watches it start and stop and giggles incessantly. So children and remotes, a dangerous game.
It's a thing.
So,
it's a thing. Especially the volume up one. That one sucks when you're nowhere near it, because then suddenly it's like what's going on? It
was a fun day in the old Richards household here when we realized that she had figured out that it was the only remote that did anything, and that she dismissed the other remote, and that was like, oh man, she's smart. Oh, this is gonna be tough. So,
she's the tech pundit's kid.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Jeff, and everybody else who told me about Button Remapper. Problem solved. Thanks to the All About Android community. Love you all.
Yay, love it.
We forget
Love
that
it.
you can use regular old Android apps on Android TV. Like, I don't know why there's that cognitive dissonance, but it's like, oh, that's right. I can go into the Play Store and see if this app works with Android TV and try and get it to do something here. So
yeah, and I mean they don't all work, but it often like
right, exactly. Yeah.
Side loading it. Side loading is not impossible on Android TV. It's also not like crazy easy as it is on your phone. But anyways, Joel writes in to say 2 years ago, I decided to take my data off the cloud, went with a Synology DS218 Plus NAS with 4 terabytes of redundant storage. I love that thing, and I've configured it so I can access it securely from anywhere in the world, including my music. This is why Joel wrote in. So when Google announced that YouTube Music would replace Play Music, I went, meh. Now, on paper, this looks simple, but it's not for everyone. A few things to consider. You need to have at least some modicum of technical expertise to set it up and expose it to the net securely, familiarity with opening ports on your router, that sort of stuff, certificates. The Synology Music app is, quite frankly, trash. Its only redeeming quality is that it works in Android Auto and allows you to download the music offline. You can run Plex on the NAS and use the app on your phone, but again, you have to configure it. And in order to play music offline, you have to get the Plex Pass subscription. Keep that in mind. Plex I think, is a Twit sponsor at this moment, so full disclosure there. Also says you lose the ability to listen to music that's not in your library. That's kind of obvious. And you have to manage the metadata yourself. This means artist and album titles, covers, that sort of stuff. You have to kind of do that all yourself. Synology makes it easy, but it's a manual process. And that last part right there just made me realize how long it's been since I've had to go in and manage large amounts of metadata. That is not fun. Something like Plex that makes it really easy, where it just kind of like auto does it for you. I'm spoiled at this point, so having to do that. Joel says, that's it. I used Google's Music Manager program for Windows, like we talked about a few weeks ago on the show, and downloaded everything I acquired there. My collection will probably go away quietly into the sunset later this year, but now I control my music, not Google, and I kind of feel okay about it. Yeah. Amen. Wow. Take your music into your own hands again. Here we are, bringing it back to ownership. So there you go. I thought that was a good email. Thank you, Joel, for all the detail there. For anyone who's considering kind of owning their music library and putting it on a NAS, thought that would be helpful tips. There you go. Flo, you got the next one.
This is another helpful tip from a listener. I just listened to your May 27th podcast, and I wanted to add a comment regarding the segment where you talked about action blocks. This application was built for accessibility, and it occurred to me while listening to your show that another use case for this app is the elderly. My father is 70 years young and currently uses my old Nokia Windows phone, refusing to take me up on my consistent offers to upgrade him to an Android phone. Side note, wow. His response is always that he enjoys the simplicity of the Windows Phone UI, fair, which I had previously set up for him with large blocks that basically consisted of his most frequent tasks. My old Windows Phone, as you can imagine, is on its last legs, so I was planning on asking all about Android, which Windows Phone Metro-style launcher y'all recommended. That way I could finally upgrade him to Android, install launcher, and still retain a somewhat similar experience for him. But after watching your episode, I think action blocks might be my answer. I can basically create an environment for him with an Android that has a similar ease of use that he enjoys on my old Windows Phone. This is also perfect because my father isn't the type of person who would use Google Assistant, but Action Blocks makes it accessible for him without him even realizing it. I can't wait to see this up and try it out. Thanks for featuring this app. I'm excited about the possibility of finally bringing my dad into the Android family. Philip.
Yes.
So actually, Philip, this is, so first of all, kudos on keeping Windows Phone alive. Your father may be one of the few that is still using this once beloved platform. Second, when I learned about action blocks from Google, they actually cited the elderly as one of the use cases for action blocks. So when we think accessibility, it doesn't necessarily mean accessible to persons with a disability, although that is the primary intent. It also means accessible to everyone. And I really like that blanket approach that Google has with its accessibility features. And as a result, I'm right now figuring out how to make action blocks, for me, a more design centric part of my UI. Something that, I can just flip over to a screen and just have like a page full of helpful widgets. So if I figure out how to make that aesthetically pleasing, I will let you know, because right now I'm having some trouble. But,
Is it just like a layout trouble? Like
just trying to figure out how to make it look good with the custom image that you can add to each action block. But I really do love this use case. And I think that is one of the main reasons that I would use action blocks. It's a good feature. You know what? I'm glad it's here.
Indeed.
It's funny because going back to earlier in the show when we were talking about learning how to do Android apps, I've installed action blocks and I opened it once and I was like, oh, cool. And I have not had the time to go in and do anything with it, sadly. So I need to budget some time to really get close to action blocks.
I'm I'm this close to buying assets on like itch.io just so I can have like matching buttons. Don't mind me. I'm again quarantined and
you're going
where
deep.
I'm at. It's June. We've been quarantined since March. Yeah. Your girl over here is finding a lot of things to focus on.
All right. Can I just say for a moment before we go to the next email, I know that a little behind the curtain, we often have a lot to cover in the show and we tend to babble a lot. When we have a guest on, we talk a lot, and it's rough because we always want to include, the community in the show and emails and voicemails and video mails and stuff like that. But sometimes like we have to get to this review or we have to do this, or whatever. So it's nice when Jason is like, hey, let's do a lot of emails in this episode because it's good to hear from you. And so I want to thank everybody for emailing in. And it's good because, we are here for you, the listeners and the viewers. And so like, it's good to see you guys interacting with us as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Love it.
So that said, our next email comes from Andrew, who says he's made time to work on apps. He said, I've been working on this app for a bit. It's mainly for smartwatch users. It's still in beta because I can only work on it on weekends for limited hours, and hardware coupled apps are difficult. And let me tell you, Andrew, I feel your pain there. He says the app locks your phone and disables biometric unlocking when your smartwatch is out of range, or if you turn off your smartwatch to force a lock, requiring PIN just for the next unlock. Think of it as automation for Android P's lockdown feature, but available for older devices. It's free with no ads and has a completely optional in-app purchase for extra features, since that's where most of the dev time goes. And that is awesome. And I am jealous that you have time to work on this stuff, and want to congratulate you for actually doing it. So, Burke, if you click the link, there it is. Those watching and listening, you can check out Radius Locker, all one word, RADIUSLOCKER. Radius Locker, secure your phone when it leaves you, early access. It's in the Google Play Store. And listen, it's got over 1,000 installs, which is awesome. But come on, we got a lot of people who watch and listen to All About Android, and we know you have smartwatches. So let's see if we can get that up over the 10,000 threshold. All right, everybody go check out this app and give a little love Andrew's way. Throw some money with the in-app purchase. Let's support your devs, especially devs that are part of our community and our family. So good job, Andrew. Very cool app. I dig it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. And now's kind of a good time to have more ways to secure your phone. Gwen from Pennsylvania wrote in to say, you briefly discussed macro cameras on smartphones recently. As in the past, Jason was the only one who seems to like the idea. As a boomer in lockdown mode, I have been busy digitalizing and organizing slides and pictures that go back many years. Occasionally, I will see a slide that I would really like to share immediately with the fam. While not as good as my slide scanner, the macro camera on my Umi Digi Power 3, haven't heard of that one, is a quick and dirty way to accomplish that. Attached is an example. And this is from a slide. There's a link there. If you tap that, hopefully it opens. Hope the sharing. Yeah, there you go. So that's using the macro camera, taking a picture of a slide. And, slides are pretty small.
That's awesome.
That looks really good. Like, I have to say, that's a pretty great Great replication.
Vintage babies.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, there you go. There's an example of a way that macro comes in handy if you have slides. I know that my dad has in our attic at home tons of slides. So maybe this will be the way that I transfer them. Probably not. I'll probably get
I got to tell you, back in the day when I was publishing my zine in college, I thought I was so smart and clever because I had photographers taking pictures. I published a music zine, right? And I had photographers all around the country who would take pictures of bands at shows. And when I got wise to slides and a slide scanner, instead of having them mail me 8x10 prints that I would have to scan, I had them send me the slides. And then the Cornell University, one of the Cornell libraries had a slide scanner that was open to use. And I would just come in and I would pop the slide in, scan it, and get a nice TIFF of the slide. And it was so easy and so simple to do, and gave you such great quality. And it was easy to ship to mail slides back and forth and all that sort of stuff. And I kind of miss it. And I wonder, and it's got to be out there, but given macro lenses and Android phones and stuff like that, is there some sort of snap-on thing that you can put on the camera and put the slide in and then take a picture, and make it work, because, that would be an amazing tool for a lot of people who have, decades of slides from the 70s and 80s and 90s and stuff like that, who are using that as a technology. That'd be really neat. So I wonder if that's out there in the world. If not, I just gave someone who has more time on their hands a great idea. So
there you go. unlimited ideas. You just got to know where to look for them. Ron just gave you an easy one. That's a good idea.
I'd like to say that if my dad finds out that there is something like that, he's going to cry, because he just had thousands of slides digitized for my entire life. They're on now digitally. Yeah,
I imagine it was
definitely
a
pricey.
Costly transfer. Yeah.
So I just did a quick search, and sure enough, the fine people at Kodak have figured this out. In fact, Burke, if you can put on the and Victor found a link too, but looks like on Amazon, Victor found the same thing, the Kodak mobile film scanner, where it is a little cardboard, looks like a little cardboard pop-up thing where you slide a slide in and you place the smartphone on top of it and you take the picture. They completely have done this. It's Kodak mobile film scanner.
No way.
There it is. Yep, there it is.
$40.
I mean, it's
2 out of 5
cardboard?
stars, though, y'all.
It looks like it's made of cardboard or
really
strong. Yeah, there it is. It says digitize your film and slides with mobile film scanner from Kodak, crafted from heavyweight cardboard, which folds down into a small compact package for portable ease. The mobile scanner has a built-in LED backlight to illuminate your old 35 millimeter films and slides. Oh, this is amazing. For $40,
again,
Burke, there you go.
Reviews.
You can. Father's Day is coming up, Burke.
For $40, I don't want it to be made out of cardboard.
Yeah, that's fair.
I will note this. Yes.
Yeah. One of the reviews by Jason, I promise it's not me, gave it 3 stars. Said, let's face it, smartphone scans of negatives are basically rubbish. This is no exception. But probably not using a macro lens.
He's not using one of our phones.
Yeah, there it is.
What phone do you have?
She's using
Jason?
an iPhone.
That is your real name. He also says this should be around $15 to $20.
Which I agree with, yeah. I think there's a couple other things out there too. I think there's a couple other ways you could do this. But yeah, it's pretty neat. If I had more time.
There you go. It exists. Yeah. Nice.
That's cool.
All right, Flo, you got the last one.
Yes, I do have the last one. I almost didn't hear you there. Sorry about that. So
it's all good.
Okay, so this comes from Kevin, and before I get into it, Kevin, I am going to relate a lot to this. So Kevin writes, my Pixel 3 just died after having it for 1.5 years, and the same happened to my Pixel 1. Additionally, the support center is terrible. Because of that, I'm thinking of getting an iPhone. Side note, no. I know people have had their iPhones for 5 years. I would settle for 2 at this point, and they say the support center is good. I'm reluctant to give the 3A a try because of my experience with the Pixel and because the 4A released is probably pretty soon. The SE is the same price point. He's referring to the iPhone SE. Do you have other options? I'm really not a fan of Apple and don't want to switch over. You've come to the right place. Side note. I also don't want to spend a ton of money on a phone right now, and even OnePlus is getting up there in price, and I want a good camera. Also, if anyone has suggestions for fixing my Pixel 3, it is in a boot loop that I can't force shut down or start in safe mode. I let the battery die, and the boot loop starts back up after plugging in without me touching anything.
Well, first off, Kevin, did you put this wallpaper on your phone before that stared? Because you might want to rewind to earlier in the show, and that's a problem. So,
Kevin, I am having a similar kind of issue right now with my Pixel 3. It's about the same age, and I'm just finding it to be really slow. Apps keep crashing, and mind you, this Pixel 3, I remember last year Marilyn Monroe haunted me, and I dropped it and it broke. So I actually sent it in and got it fixed. I don't know if this is a completely new phone, the Pixel 3, or if they sent me or if they refurbished it and sent it back. I never quite looked into that. I just kind of took it and ran with it. But I'm not happy with the performance of it right now in 2020, a phone that I bought in late 2018. Yeah. That being said, so I'm going at this in order. That being said, I know that you're really turned off by the OnePlus's price point, but I'm actually switching to the OnePlus 8 because I'm just trying to see flagship wise if there's something there that I've really been missing outside of a review period with the phone. So that's a journey that I'm embarking on. As you can see, again, I've been in quarantine for so long. This is where I'm going. I don't have much to say about that yet, but I'm just saying if you're looking for something flagshipy, and I know it's like up there in the price range, but might be worth considering just because, again, OnePlus is its own little entity. You don't have to deal with like this giant Google for customer service, which I know can be a little finicky, to say the least. I had an okay time with customer service for my broken phone, but I also paid like $350 out of pocket. So different, much different, bit of a different situation there. Your second question was if you had suggestions for fixing your Pixel 3. And I just want to say that from the brief paragraph that you sent in to describe what's happening, it sounds to me like something is stuck hardware wise. And maybe that's why it's on a boot loop. But I'm, again, just speaking completely off of conjecture. I don't really know what's going on, but definitely you have an issue at your hands, and I would reach out to Google support and keep pestering them because you never know. Did you buy warranty? Kind of a bummer that we have to buy a warranty for a phone, but that's neither here nor there. If you did, I would look into that. I would contact anyway. Again, we're in quarantine. What else are you doing right now? I mean, I know there's plenty to do.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Something to consider. I'm always a fan of going after the company before I decide to do anything else. It is something I learned. I learned this from my Eastern European ancestors. So we're just, very hot-headed, and we just want to see if we can get some help before we find other routes. But again, worth thinking about. And as for the 3A and the 4A, I didn't use the 3A long enough to really, or as a daily driver, to be able to really talk to how it performs now, a year and some change later. But I can see why you're tempted by that iPhone. And this is something that here at All About Android, we're really meditating on because the industry is changing a little bit. Apple's kind of figured out how to cash in on that cow. And I'm very curious to see how Android is going to respond, the Android ecosystem as a whole, because usually one manufacturer does something, kind of a bunch of others come together and like, maybe you're onto something. So I'm very curious to see how this is all going to evolve. But until then, just if you're feeling like the Pixels just aren't doing it for you, I know OnePlus is expensive, but maybe you can buy last year's OnePlus phone, the 7 Pro or the 7T, see how you feel with that, and then go from there. Definitely check out the experience before you commit to something. So good luck, Kevin.
Yeah, OnePlus 7T. I'm looking it up right now. That's an amazing phone. Still, I mean, it's awesome. It's $499 right now.
Ron, aren't you still using it?
Price wise,
I am. I'm on my OnePlus 7, not T. I'm on the Pro still.
7 Pro. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
7 Pro.
Came out with
I never.
T.
I never jumped to the ST, or I didn't, in whatever direction it was. But I love the Pro. I love the OnePlus 7 Pro. It's great. To the point where I made the decision not even to entertain the 8 because the 7's been working so great for me.
Yeah,
and
great.
that's a good testament to the manufacturer, because I think we really need to step away from this idea of a new year, new phone. I mean, we're people. We're humans. We have bills to pay. We have, it's not sustainable.
Boy, we do.
We also have the rumors of the OnePlus Z coming out sometime this summer.
Oh, that's true.
Although launching in India, I don't know how wide of a release is going to be outside of that. I think eventually the plan is to launch it outside of India and other places, but that hasn't even been officially announced. But that would be a mid-range OnePlus, so that would be more in the price range. However, if the 7T is $500 and this is right around that price point, maybe it makes most sense to just get the 7T. Anyways, you have some things to chew on there.
Yeah.
And see if any of that lands for you. All right. Well, folks, we are at that point in the show where we jump into the arena and we talk about some apps that we think are pretty neato. So let's do it.
So
neato apps.
But only one lives.
Arena. Okay, big winner this week.
Wow.
I mean, uncontested winner as far as this is concerned. Flow, DuckDuckGo.
Oh, wow.
66% of the votes went to DuckDuckGo. Second place, Roundup app. That was yours, Ron. 21%. Third place in Lou. That was Chad's. 7%. Fourth place. Wow. People didn't really care for my app. Gibbs. That was 5% of the votes.
Aww.
But it's okay. It's okay. I'll keep coming back.
Yeah. So good job, Flo, with that slam dunk with DuckDuckGo. So after 22 weeks in the arena, Flo is firmly in first place now with 61 points. Good job. Jason is in second with 53. Although I'm catching up, I've got 51 points in third place. And the guests have 45 points in last place, and they're not going to gain any this week because we got no guest. And Jason, since you came in last, sir, you get to go first.
All right. So the app that I'm going to show off here, well, I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to actually show off. This is not an app that I have run myself, but I think it's pretty neat what it's doing. It's called App Volume Control. This is actually, if you have a rooted phone and you have Magisk running on your phone, this ties into that. So you can find this in the Play Store. XDA did a really good write-up on this. And the idea here is that you can control individual volume levels of apps that you have running on your phone. So say, for example, you're using your phone and you're playing a game, like any game that you happen to be playing, but you don't want to listen to the soundtrack of the game, or maybe you do want to listen to the soundtrack of the game, but you want to listen to that mixed with your favorite game playing music, playlist on Google Play Music or YouTube Music or whatever. This app, based on the root capabilities or the root access that you get through how this ties into Magisk, it allows for you to do exactly that. It allows you to go in on an app by app basis and basically mix app sources. So you could take the music that's streaming from YouTube Music and allow that to play underneath and set the volume independent of the volume that's coming in for the game that you happen to be playing. And I don't know, I just think that's pretty neat. I haven't seen that done before. It makes sense that it would require root in order to do this. I don't have an Android 10 device that's rooted here, so I couldn't test this out. The device that I have that's rooted is a few versions earlier. I think Android 10 is the requirement for this app to work. But you can create presets for individual apps as far as what volume we want them to be when they launch. You can set like different volumes per ear if you want to do that. It's just one of those apps that you can kind of get a little detailed as far as how you set this up. And I think it's kind of neat. So it's called App Volume Control. You could do a search for the developer Alcatraz Dev, all one word. Again, this does require a rooted device, Android 10 running Magisk it's a mod for Magisk essentially. So you want that running on there as well. And that is called App Volume Control. Check it out. I think it's pretty neat. All right, Ron, you have the next app.
I do have the next app, and Burke, I put the link in the vid URL column to my screen. I'm streaming my screen to share with you all. I know often those longtime listeners and viewers of the show know that I tend to put in a lot of, like customize your phone or crazy keyboards or here's another to-do list app or that sort of thing. This week I discovered something I want to have a little fun with you today. It's called Fancade. And what it is it's a gaming platform that has 3 modes to it. It is all basically 8, kind of like not 8-bit, but 16-bit, as you can tell, these pixely kind of 3D design, kind of indie game interface that probably looks familiar to a lot of you. Along the bottom, you see there are 4 buttons. 3 modes, and then you go to kind of your settings. The first mode is quest mode, where there's a series of quests similar to, like any sort of, Angry Birds or that sort of thing, where there are different levels that you have to play. And what's great about this is that you can rotate the little the field of play, and you can navigate your little dude. And the whole goal is to get your little guy, who you can see there at the bottom, the yellow box with the eye. I got to get him up top to that yellow box. And so I can tap, and I can see when the white boxes open up, that shows me where he can walk. So I can rotate this screen, and I can keep him going. This reminds me of a lot of the indie games that were on the Xbox Marketplace the last time I had a console and was playing with them. There was a great game that was like a 2D game that you could do this with, where you rotated everything. I forget what it's called. I'm sure the chat room's going to tell me. I had a lot of fun playing it. It was very zen-like. But anyway, so you can go through here, and you get to the little yellow box, and then ta-da, and then you go to the next level. So that's the quest, and there's an ad there. I'm sorry. So that's the quest version of within the app, which is great. So now I'm going to go back and show you that in addition to the quest mode, there is also there you go, back. There is also an arcade, where within here there's a bunch of little mini games, puzzle games, arcade games, driving games, physics games, etc., that have been made that you can play. So in this particular case, I go to the popular section, and these are all these games that have been created, that have been submitted to this platform, and you could load up and play any of these. So here I'm going to play Top Gear Fancade, which appears to be a driving game. And this is all user generated, right? So you can make a game and submit it. So I'm going to do mode 2 so that I ignore the basics. But essentially, there's my truck, and I can jump it, and I'm not very good at it since I'm just figuring out how to do it. But, it's using a lot of physics, and I'm swiping left and right to make the truck move. I'm going kind of slowly because I don't want to die, right? But yeah, so this is a game that someone has made. I could also use the gas and the brake pedal on the bottom side to control it. And there is a whole bunch of these, and there's a whole bunch of different types of games. Here there's a little Arkanoid kind of shooter game where the whole idea is kind of like Breakout, where you have a bunch of balls at the bottom and you want to break the individual things. If you're looking for little kind of fun, kind of simple games to play, there's a ton in here, and they're all different, and you will have a hard time getting tired of, like literally, like I got lost in here earlier. But then the last button is Build, which basically allows you to take all of the elements within the game platform and build your own games, right? So if you play Mario Maker on Switch or anything like that, it is very similar to that. So you can here I was tinkering with editing a game called Ronixo Madness, and here it takes a little bit to get the interface, but here I can see this is my board, and here's my little avatar. I can move this stuff. I'm kind of drawing boxes over to identify the elements I want to move, and I'm tapping on things to move them within it. And then here along the bottom on the bottom is the various things that you can put into the game. So I can take one of these little doohickeys and put it onto the field, and I can add some more land. I can add a little ghost. Right. And then you can demo your game, and I haven't set any rules or anything, so nothing else really happens. But and there's a whole bunch of elements that you can use and leverage, and little kits to open up templates and things like that, to open up, physics box and spheres and different kind of sound elements. You can add a play sound or a stop sound. Like there's all this amazing toolbox that you can make your own games and submit them to the arcade. So Funcade, it's called Funcade, Fancade. It's free in the Google Play Store. It's got some ads in it here and there, but you can not only play their quest mode, you can play a lot of the simple arcade games, or you can make your own games. It's a pretty solid platform there. And Burke in our internal chat room points out that I should have called it Ronixocraft. And I know Chad, our good friend OMG Chad, would be disappointed in me. But yeah, it is very Minecrafty. It is. I'll give it that. But it's available on your phone, and it's free, and it's fun. So go have a good time. Go play Fancade.
Neat. I like it.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So that is Fancade. And good pick. Let's see here. So Flo, the returning champion, you are up next. What you got?
Okay. So today I brought an app called Skit. Now there's a free version in the Play Store, but I brought the premium version. And if I recall correctly, it's somewhere like $249 to buy. Support your devs. I bought the premium version because, again, it was $2.49. All right, that's have a cup of coffee in a major metropolitan area. Burke, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to show a quick little demo of this. I just dropped in the link, the URL for the screen leap. But before we get into that, I'm just going to very quickly give a rundown of what this is. So this app, it's kind of basically an APK extractor, which I don't actually remember how I stumbled upon this. I just know that I found it in the Play Store when I was doing my every couple of weeks I'll go into the Play Store and I'll just download a massive apps and see what is worth using and what's not. And this came up in my suggestions, and I'm finding that it's actually a very useful app right now because I'm switching phones. I'm switching from the Pixel 3 to the OnePlus 8, and I found that it's just useful in kind of buttoning up what I'm transferring over to the new phone and getting rid of apps, any deprecated packages that kind of still exist on the Pixel 3. And since we're stuck at home still, maybe this is a good time to consider doing a little bit of phone maintenance. And I would say that this is an app that can help you do that. So when you log into Skit, you give it all these, obviously you have to give it all the permissions because it's reading in your app list. It goes deep in on these apps. Okay. So let's take the Android TV app, for instance. So when you tap on the Android TV app, it'll take you to a screen. Now the UI that you see is a dark mode. And I had to go into the settings specifically to set up this mode. It's usually with a white background, but that's, again, something you can customize in the settings of the app, which is nice. So when you click into each individual app, it looks a little bit like the screen that you're usually used to in the settings panel, but it's a little more explanatory. So for instance, I want to know what access to permissions Android TV has. So I would tap on the permissions, and it will not only, usually when you're in the settings panel, it'll say, oh, this app has internet access. But why does this app have internet access? And what does that mean? So for developers, you kind of know based on what you have in your development documentation, what it is that has access to. In this app, it tells you outright. So the Android TV app has access to the internet, which allows the application to access the internet. I know it sounds very self-explanatory, but sometimes if there's maybe a shady app, as we were talking about earlier, that you want to check out, this would be a good app to use for that. And let me show you how to do that. So when you go back into the interface, and for those who are watching the visual stream, there's a bunch of other options. You can check to see what activities this app can do. I don't speak developer, so I don't want to butcher what some of these things do. So I'm gonna keep it simple. So let's say you want to extract the APK for this. You would tap on the floating action button, and it gives you several options. You can either open it, extract it into an APK, or you can go straight to the Google Play Store, or you can share the APK directly through whatever, the typical sharing menu. So when you extract it, it saves it as an APK in your downloads folder. And now let's say I would like to go and check out what this APK is about. So let's say you did download something from the internet that you were thinking about side loading, and you wanted to maybe check to see that it was safe. So you would go into the analyzer in the tools section of this app, and you would tap on the APK, and it would basically give you the same screen that we were just at. But that's for any APK that's just downloaded on your device into the downloads folder. So maybe you go to APK Mirror, you want to check something out. Maybe you download an APK from a random message board. That's the best use case for this particular app. A couple other things that you can do here is, I was talking about maintenance earlier. So as I was looking through this list, I actually noticed that there were some deprecated packs that I had, some AR packs that I had downloaded. So let's see if I can find that again. I'm going to go really fast for the visual stream just to see if I can remember where it was. It was around here somewhere last I saw it. So Playground is the VR plugin, whatever, for for the Google camera. And so I noticed here that I have a deprecated pack that doesn't work anymore. So you tap on that and you can go to Actions, and then you would delete it, and it will not only uninstall this app, but it will uninstall all the packages. Now, normally you would uninstall an app from the app settings screen, but in this particular situation, you're uninstalling something that is just deeply living in your system folders. So we're uninstalling it. That's it. It's done. It's bye-bye. Bye-bye. It's finished. A couple other things this does, just gives you basic system information, whether you're rooted, how many applications you have, how much storage you're using. I am obviously at the very tail end of what I'm allowed on this phone. There's also a simple backup, which will back up all of your apps to a basic text edit file, which is very helpful to have in case your transfer between phones goes wrong, or you just want to have a list somewhere that you can easily update. There's also stats, so you can see what it is that is taking up all that location on your phone, and cool little just tidbits is that it will tell you what apps you have and what version of Android they're targeted toward. So if you look at this graph, you'll see that a majority of the apps that are targeted are this lime green half of the circle, and that lime green is Android 10. So it's good to know we're targeted Android 10. I'm also very curious to see which one of the apps are targeted toward Android 11, but we're not going to do that here now. Anyway, so that is Skit Premium. It's an indie app, as I like to call it. It's an indie developer in the Play Store. There's a lot of settings. That $2.50 USD will go to developer to kind of help keep this updated. The app has its own built-in changelog. It's obviously an app that was made for developers, but I found that it just has a lot of helpful little tools for kind of knowing what's going on in the system beyond what the settings panel can offer me. Oh, and of course, it extracts APKs. And if you're trying to learn how to do Android development, do it the way that helpful. I learned HTML. That's helpful. Break it apart.
Going back, I mentioned earlier in the show, I used to hack at PC games, and I would extract the exe file and read the hex code to try. I'm like, okay, great, that's where the save game is, and then you figure out where all that sort of stuff is, and then you figure out how to make it so you have unlimited lives.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. That's correct.
Sounds pretty familiar. Been there, done that. Or tried to, anyways. I don't know if I actually pulled it off, but yeah, exactly. Thought it was a lot smarter than I actually was.
What are our children going to do for hacking? Is it just taking apart apps, mobile apps, and
Roblox and
style
sheets? I was going to say the same thing. Roblox, yes. Yes. I feel like
Sadly.
every day I hear one of my kids say, I was hacked on Roblox. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, it's, Yep. That's what's happening. All right. So it's time for you to place your vote for your favorite app this week. Go to twit.to/AAA poll 476. Is your favorite app Volume Control? Is it Fancade or Skit Premium?
What?
Place your vote. Check out
Burke, you said sold in our doc chat. I thought I had your vote, and you voted for Skit Premium. Whoa, I got the Burke eye.
Don't mess with Burke.
Burke
votes
Everyone,
for
Burke has
for.
very nice sable blue eyes, just so everybody knows. That's what we're watching in the visual.
Wow. All right. twit.to/AAA poll 476. And that is it. We've reached the end of another episode of All About Android. It's been a lot of fun, you guys. I enjoy doing this show, but I also really enjoy doing this show when it's kind of just us hanging out.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of doing this like guest one week, just hanging out the next week thing, back and forth. We're kind of having some fun with playing around with some things. So I quite enjoyed today. That was a lot of fun. Flo, why don't we start with you? What would you like to talk about?
Oh, what would I like to talk about? I did something neat. This is just a neat thing because I'm here every week, and I constantly tell you to go to my website, florencezion.com. But if you'd like to go to all the links where I am all over the internet, I've been using Notion to make like little web pages that I can link to just because it's super easy. You just like pop in and make, write out what you want and click share. And I linked one of my Notion notebooks to, and I'm sorry, Burke, I didn't link this in the doc, but flowrights.tech. And I used Hover, sponsor of the Twit Network, to get that domain. So flowrights.tech is how you would go to my cute little link site that I made for myself. Because I was very annoyed with Linktree, because that's what everybody uses on Instagram. I was like, here, like go to these relevant links, but I don't want to pay for something. That's ridiculous. And I already pay for Hover. So I made my own little Notion page. So if anybody just wants to go and check it out, flowrights.tech. That is a URL that I'm giving you.
Boom. flowrights.tech. And there's our website. Ron, what you got?
I'm not nearly as prolific or productive as Flo. I'm just going to remind everybody to go follow me at RonXO on Twitter and Instagram, although I've been kind of quiet there lately. Just been working a lot and dealing with the world and just trying to stay cool and keep the babies fed, but all is well. And I know some of you were talking in the chat room earlier in the show. We're talking about my pinball startup called Scorebit at scorebit.io. We are working very hard. When we do launch the app and all stuff like that, maybe we take some time and I talk about it a little more. But as you guys remember, I was teasing it back in February and March because we were all aligned for a March launch. And because of everything that's happened, we scrapped it. And it required us to pivot a bit and make some changes and change what our approach was, and I think for the better. And so now we're going to be launching soon this summer, and so we can get into that once that happens. But yes, keep an eye on scorebit.io. More coming there. So
nice.
Yeah.
Can't wait. I love it.
Me too.
Victor, Burke, thanks to you both for doing. Oh, there's the site. Sorry, I didn't realize the site was up. I was talking about Victor and Burke. But we should marvel at the site of Scorebit just for a second. Okay, we did that. Burke and Victor, thanks so much for helping out behind the scenes. Although Victor is indeed in the chat room behind the scenes. Burke, you were a little in front of the scenes today, and it's okay. Your eyeball got on the show a few times, and that's all right. I'm here for it. So, thanks for doing what you do. Yeah, that's just
now we got eyebrows
shot.
too.
Okay. As for me, go to twit.tv/HOA. That's the site for Hands on Android. Last week I did an episode on locking down your Android device. Coming up this Thursday is an episode where I spend some time experimenting with the built-in and somewhat hidden desktop mode in Android 10 to kind of see. I just got curious about it. Like, I had never really spent much time playing around with it, so I wanted to see what is it capable of. Spoiler, not a whole lot. And are there ways to make it more useful? Like, is there a way to take a look at what it could become? So I spent some time with that. That's coming out this Thursday, twit.tv/HOA for Hands on Android. But that is it for this week. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Subscribe to this podcast by going to twit.tv/AAA. That is where you can find all the links to subscribe in audio and video formats. We record and publish every Tuesday evening. So if you're subscribed, you'll get it automatically, and you don't even have to think about it. It's like RSS magic.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Like and subscribe.
And hit that bell. Yeah. That bell, whatever that bell is. But that's it. Thank you all. We'll see you next week on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
Hey folks, it's Micah Sargent here, co-host of Smart Tech Today right here on twit.tv. Every single week, Matthew Casanelli and I sit down to talk about smart tech for the week. That's right. It can get kind of complicated, but there's a lot of news out there. There's a lot of products to dig through. There are a lot of questions to answer, and we try to do that all every single week. From voice assistants to wearables to smart garage door openers and lights, there's so much to cover and, well, so little time. So be sure to check it out. It's twit.tv/STT. Huh, that rhymes.